Good morning, everybody. I'm Lisa Mensah. I'm the Executive Director of the Aspen Institute's Initiative on Financial Security, and we are thrilled to be here this morning. This topic is Saving is for Everyone, Add the Kids. And we are so excited to be here with Senator Lincoln to be delving into this topic about why America needs a new kind of transformational savings policy and why it should start with our kids. Couldn't be happier. I'm going to make a few introductions and then introduce Senator Lincoln. To my right is David White, who, as you can see by your program, is the CEO of the Children's Mutual in the United Kingdom. We could not be more fortunate to have with us really one of the leading architects from the business community in the UK for this important policy. We are aspiring to this policy, but in the UK they've done it. And it is just so exciting to have David here with us to show us a little bit of how they've done it and inspire us to go forward. To David's immediate right is Bill Bynum. Bill is the CEO of the Enterprise Corporation of the Delta and Hope Credit Union. The ECD and Hope Credit Union work in the 3 states of Mississippi, Arkansas, and Louisiana. You will not meet a more polished community development financial institution with deep roots and the ability to actually make this economy move from the ground up. Bill knows about microfinance, about small business lending, and about asset creation. And Bill, we couldn't be more pleased to have you with us. Bill serves on my board of advisors as one of the CEOs there. And to Bill's immediate right is Angela Duran. Angela is the CEO and president of the Southern Good Faith Fund's Good Faith Fund, based in Little Rock, Arkansas. Angela I've known for over a decade, and I've known the work of the Good Faith Fund for 20 years when I was one of its first funders. This was the first time we tried to import a Bangladeshi idea of microfinance from the Grameen Bank and run it in the first state in the union was Arkansas to try it. And Angela takes over the reins 10 years ago to move this institution beyond its roots in microfinance to how we create assets and opportunities for so many rural communities, particularly low-income people in those communities. We could not, really, this is a treat. It's so much my privilege to be here because this is the kind of voices we need today. So I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to introduce Senator Lincoln, who really needs no introduction. I'm so pleased. My children were here, and I said, there are very few women senators, and we have this amazing opportunity today to be with someone who is bold in her vision, who is bold in her approach, and who is taking on this big idea for us, for the country. So, Senator Lincoln, so welcome.
Well, good morning to everyone, and welcome to such an important event. Saving is for everyone, and add our kids, which is our message here, which is so very important. I just want to begin by saying an enormous thanks to the people that are up here with me. I am humbled to be with this group because this is a group of doers. And, I grew up in a 7th-generation Arkansas farm family in the Mississippi Delta. My dad was a rice farmer, David, and my parents are salt of the earth. They're good folks. They believe in their community and their country. They believe in each other, and they taught that to us children. But they always said, if you want to do something nice for someone, do something good for their children. And these are doers. These are people who believe in that and who take the initiative to make that happen. The other thing my dad used to always say is, he said, don't be a whiner. Don't sit around and whine about things that you don't like, or you don't like how they're happening. He said, I haven't raised a bunch of whiners. He said, get out there and make it better. Work hard to make it better because people like results. And that's what this group up here brings. They bring results. They work hard under incredible circumstances, and they're doing it for somebody else's kids, and they're doing it to get results and make a difference in the world and change things that they may not agree with or they certainly don't want to have to see, but they're going to make them better. And so I am very, very humbled to be in this gathering in this group right here. It's such an impressive panel of children's advocates, financial leaders, policy experts, and we're here today to announce a really bold new proposal to provide universal savings accounts for every American child, putting all of our children on a lifelong path to financial security and to learn about savings. It's an exciting thing. Growing up in that very small Delta town, I can remember on Saturdays I used to get to go downtown with my grandfather. And that was Main Street for us back then. Main Street now is in most of our living rooms, on the internet, and in different places. But there's so many things that teaches us as children. I was given some money on that Saturday morning, and I could go into the record shop and buy 45. I could go to the drugstore and buy a comic book, or I could save my money. And my grandfather, who believed so strongly in savings, he always let me every now and then buy 45 or, do something like that. But there was always that encouragement to save. And then he started me a little account at the bank, and it was such a wonderful thing to be able to walk into the bank and take my little passbook that I had, my little passbook account, and make my deposit, and to see that money grow, and to think about the things that I could dream towards, whether it was college, or whether it was a trip, or whether it was just buying Christmas gifts for my family that I really wanted to get. But it was looking at what I was doing with those resources and watching them grow. And that is such an important tool in today's world. Well, our world is busy. It's hectic. Not as many children get to make a visit to Main Street with their grandparents and to get those kind of lessons firsthand and to see how meaningful they are. But it is a critical part. For far too long, America has not been a nation of savers. We have gotten too hectic. We've also gotten too disposable. We just think everything is disposable. And personal savings rate in our country, in the U.S., have languished. They've languished near zero for years. And with the recent economic turmoil, what little American families had saved has now been dealt a devastating blow. I was telling David, I have boys that turned 13 on Friday, and we were sitting around the table, I guess it was back in January, and having dinner, and my husband said, "Boys, y'all need to get on to basketball practice." He said, "'Cause your college account just got cut in half, and we may need a scholarship, so get out there and practice really hard." But, a lot of American families have seen that. Those of us that have tried to save and work towards that goal have recognized in these economic times that it's a very difficult thing, and it's been a devastating blow. Personal savings is vital to American families in their financial security. It is personal savings which help Americans finance higher education, build a meaningful nest egg for secure retirement. My husband leaves the house every morning, one day closer to retirement, he says. And I said, well, dear, we still got kids to put through college. But people look towards that. It's a time in their life that they prepare for. And providing that crucial financial insurance in case of a rainy day. That's another thing that both my husband and myself, and it's interesting to note, my husband's grandmother will turn 112. Is amazing. But she had the very same attitude my grandfather did, and luckily for my husband and I, we don't clash at it, we agree in terms of the importance of saving and saving for that rainy day. Unfortunately, today's saving system is a confusing patchwork of plans. It's too complex for easy universal use. Government incentives to spur personal savings largely miss our low and moderate income families, which again, Bill and Angela have such a tremendous presence in working with our low and moderate income folks, particularly in the Delta. It's estimated that 1 in 4 Americans do not have a simple checking account, let alone a savings account or a retirement account. Clearly, such a scenario requires bold solutions and a stronger commitment if we want greater financial security for all Americans. And it's time we provide the help that's necessary to start all Americans off on that path to financial security. I know my husband and I have been working with our boys, and it's been interesting to watch them as they've started with their savings, and we talk about what that savings is going to be for one of these days. Well, one of my boys is adamant about savings, and then he looked at his bank account and he realized he was getting so little interest. And I told him, I said, well, you have to save more, because the more you have, the greater your interest will be, and there are other places to put your money. Well, what? Where else can I put my? Well, how about a CD? But you have to have a certain amount and you get a better. Well, I'm telling you, that little scrapper, he saved every nickel he had to get to enough to put in a CD, and sits back and thinks he's just, he's making a big whopping interest on there. But he's paying attention. And that is what is so critical and so important, I think. It's time we provide the help that is necessary to start all Americans off on this tremendous pathway. We must provide Americans the tool to save earlier, save more steadily, save more effectively. We've got to provide effective financial literacy. I can't tell you how much I talk about that at home in Arkansas and up here in Washington as well. Financial literacy for our children who are growing up in this disposable culture, in this fast pace, who sometimes are thinking only about what happens in the next 10 minutes as opposed to what happens in the next 10 years. But financial literacy and education opportunities, we must work to build a new generation of financially empowered consumers. I want to commend President Obama for his leadership promoting a renewed culture of savings, his initiatives on the auto IRAs, the enhancement of the Savers credit are evidence that this administration is clearly committed to providing the equitable savings assistance that all American families need and deserve. And I believe his focus on savings presents us with an important opportunity in Congress to strengthen the country's most precious asset, our most precious resource. It's our children. And if we've missed that, we've missed a lot. They are our greatest asset. Savings, like every good habit, is best learned early. Teaching our children the importance of thrift will go a long way in preventing them from facing an insecure financial future. Child accounts can provide the hands-on tools largely recognized as necessary to improve our nation's financial literacy and build a new generation of financially informed consumers. Katie, you want to take my phone? It seems to be going crazy. But over the past several years, the Aspen Institute's initiative on financial security has worked to craft innovative ways to foster a savings society, and we are so proud of that. I am particularly proud to be a partner with them in their efforts, and I so look forward to introducing the Child Accounts Act of 2009, which has been a cornerstone of their efforts and their push, and it is so commendable. It's modeled after the UK Child Trust Fund with a simple design and an efficient private sector delivery. Child Accounts promise to provide a first-class savings accounts for every American child. We are fortunate to be joined here today, certainly by David White, who's the Chief Executive of the Children's Mutual and a leading specialist in the children's savings market in the United Kingdom. Mr. White can attest to the power of universal children's savings accounts, and I could have sworn that he heard my father's sermon about how important it is for children to learn what it is to make changes and to move forward. We should take heed from the United Kingdom and likewise broaden America's savings efforts. And I'm certainly appreciative to you, David, and glad to have a great mentor like you that we can work from, and certainly to have an example that we have seen that's been successful to be able to sell to my colleagues. I also want to take a moment and give an especially warm welcome and a thanks to Angela Duran with the Southern Good Faith Fund. I cannot tell you where we would be without the Southern Good Faith Fund. They have been tremendous partners for us in the Delta, particularly in my hometown. I grew up in one of the 25 poorest counties in the country, in Phillips County, Arkansas, and without the Good Faith Fund, we would not be doing all of the great things that we are doing to try to bring our community back and bring it back in a good and solid way. The Southern Good Faith Fund, under Angela's leadership, it just does a tremendous job of providing those special opportunities for low and moderate income families, particularly in the Delta. Lisa, thanks to you and the wonderful staff for all the hard work and leadership on the issues over the years. I'm certainly pleased to be a part of your efforts, and I look forward to our continued work together as important savings efforts move forward and we fight for the inclusion of these child accounts. I'd also like to thank Bill Bynum. Bill's with the Enterprise Corporation based out of Jackson, Mississippi, and he didn't have to be over in Arkansas. As my husband says to me when I complain about my job, he says, nobody asked you to do this. You raised your hand. Bill is one of those people that continually raises his hand to really help others and to help create opportunities for others where they can sustain themselves. It's not just that he wants to give a handout. He wants to create a living, breathing, sustainable environment where people can do for themselves. And that's an incredible gift. And we're very grateful to Bill and to all the hard work that they do. So through my role as chair of the Senate Finance Committee Subcommittee on Pensions, Social Security, and Family Policy, I'm going to look really forward to ensuring that our children receive a larger focus in this savings debate as we bring it forward. I look forward to working with my colleagues on the committee and with the administration to ensure that we pull up another chair to this drafting table. And as we talk about savings and the importance of financial literacy, that one of those chairs at the table will be specifically saved for our children, for our kids, and to make sure that we are keeping this conversation and the dedication of moving America back to a nation of savers, that we don't forget and we don't leave our children out of that conversation. So now is the moment, and I hope we will all seize that moment to add our kids to the conversation. So thank you all very much. I'm proud to be here. Now, I've turned this back over to you,
We're going
Donna.
to just bring David up, and we're going to have 3 more voices. We could not, you see where we were like, this is so wonderful, Senator. Thank you for starting us off. David.
Well, good morning, everyone. And can I firstly say thank you to you, Senator Lincoln, and of course to you, Lisa, for inviting me to address you today. It's a great privilege just to be in this building. This is a great seat of democracy, and to have the opportunity to take the floor is an honour. Now, there are many reasons why I like coming to the States. Foremost is the fact that I know I'm amongst friends, and that's something I hold dear. It's also because of the things that our 2 countries value so much: our freedom, our democracy, our sense of fairness, and what I call a willingness and desire to do the right thing. And you'll hear me talk about doing the right thing again before I'm finished. Now, on top of this, I have huge admiration for your relentless pursuit of the American dream, and the fact that anyone, that's right, anyone, can go as far as they can take themselves. My case is a simple one. At the Children's Mutual, we want every child in the UK to have every chance. Every chance of fulfilling their dreams and aspirations, of fulfilling their potential, regardless of their background. Every chance of attaining the highest educational achievement, of starting businesses, of owning homes, and of having a life where opportunity and choice are optimised. Few, if any, I think would argue with our vision. But let's be clear. In this modern world, and in particular in this world that's facing real economic challenges, a young person's access to opportunity, choice, and yes, real freedom is compromised if they don't have access to what I call the financial springboard into adulthood that allows them to do the things that we all want them to be able to do. For these reasons, and the strong desire to restore the savings habit in our country, a desire to move away from the spend, not save culture we've engendered, Prime Minister Tony Blair, and then of course he was Chancellor Gordon Brown, introduced the Child Trust Fund in 2005, a savings account for every child, and I had the great privilege of working with them to help craft it. So as a consequence, every child born in our country since 1st September 2002 has, or will have, obviously in future, an open, active Child Trust Fund. And today, we now have 4.5 million children with open, active accounts. The parents of eligible children are sent a certificate for $400 equivalent, and their job is to choose a financial firm to run their child's Child Trust Fund. There are 40 firms to choose from, which I think tells you there's a healthy competitive market. And healthy competitive markets are good because they drive real benefits for consumers through competition and through innovation. And by the way, for consumers benefiting in this case, read children benefiting. Now, I know there's been some debate here as to whether a programme like this should be centrally run or federally run or run by private firms. Well, I guess you'd understand which side of the argument I would be on. But I can tell you that my team at the Children's Mutual is clear. Our business, their livelihood, their jobs, live or die based on our success in the market. And that makes a big difference. So this is the first truly universal product that's been introduced. Every child gets one, and to reflect that, a special consumer protected account must be offered by licensed providers. There's a cap on the fees we can charge to protect the consumers, and we must invest in the stock market in the early years because it's important that children get the maximum potential return on what's saved for them. Why should investment in the stock market be the preserve of the rich? Why shouldn't the children have a stake in corporate Britain or indeed corporate America? Now, from 13 to 18, we move the money into bonds to protect the gains and make the accounts liquid and available for the children at 18. If parents don't use their $400 certificate to open their child's account, within a year, the government opens one automatically for the children, because it's vital that no child misses out. Children from low-income families, that's families where household income's below $25,000, they receive a second payment of $400 at birth, and then the process is repeated for all of the children at age 7. That is, they receive another $400 or $800 from government. Lastly, disabled children are to receive an extra $160 a year following announcement in the government's recent budget. Now, once the account's running, parents, families, grandparents, and indeed anyone can add to the accounts up to a limit of $2,000 a year, and all the growth is tax-free. At 18, the funds will automatically roll over into an adult tax-privileged savings plan. So you go to bed on the last day of your 17th or 18th year with money in your child account, you wake up with money in your adult account. Why? Because we want to keep them in the savings habit. We want to get them to understand that they can do this again as adults. Equally importantly, though, it's at that point that the young adult can start to draw the money to fund education, training, or in fact, anything at all. It's important not to get elitist. It's not just about university education. If a youngster whose parents have never worked or grandparents have never worked buys a car and gets driving lessons, and that makes him or her more employable, then we've done our job. So if these are the mechanics, there's a bigger question, isn't there? Does it work? Well, the answer is yes, absolutely. And it works in two ways. Firstly, before I talk about the success of the accounts themselves, I'd just like to mention that the introduction of the Child Trust Fund has a separate and very real benefit. With some help from people like me, it's encouraged government to introduce financial education programmes into all schools, and they actually start later this month. Every school in the country will have a money week from starting June the 29th, where the children will have money lessons wired into all the other lessons they're having during that week. And the idea is that we repeat it. Financial literacy, I couldn't agree with you more, Senator, is a huge issue. So let's turn to the active success of the accounts. At the Children's Mutual, our market share is 25%, so every fourth baby born in the country comes to us. And we have accounts opened from families from all walks of life. Now, I tell you that not as a commercial, although, of course, I'm very proud of what our team has achieved. I tell you because it means we have a vast customer base from which to learn and draw analysis. Last year, for example, 30,000 of the children received one-off lump sum payments into their accounts, usually around $650. Often these payments are made at Christmas or birthdays or baptisms, and you'd be amazed at how we're changing culture. Others have heard me speak this week. In January, first 2 weeks in January, you don't want to be in our office. There is a flood of cheques because people now give cheques for Child Trust Fund accounts as Christmas presents. Baptisms, people give gifts. Instead of trying to work out what to buy, they give gifts of money. But the overwhelming success is the fact that with us at the Children's Mutual, nearly 50% of all accounts opened start a monthly direct deposit transfer at the same time. Parents saving every month for their child's future. And I can tell you at 50%, that's double what our business plan suggested would happen when we decided to go into this market. The average they're saving is £40 a month. But there's more encouraging news than that. Drill down a level, where we've profiled our customer base, we find that for the kids who are in the cohort of what I call their family living just above welfare dependency, so these are not rich people, not at all, 30% of the kids with us that are in that cohort are having money saved for them every single month. Don't tell me that low-income families won't save. Don't tell me that low-income families don't want a better future for their children, because it's not true. I just want to tell you about one of those low-income children. 10 family members, because as I said earlier, anyone can contribute. 10 family members are all saving $16 a month for one little guy I know. He's maxing out on his allowance, or what's allowed to be saved for him. No one individually in this low-income family is breaking the bank at $16 a month. Little guy is looking at $60,000 when he gets to 18. That's real life-changing stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, clearly every child in the UK born since September 2002 will now have a financial head start. We believe the number of people saving for children's long-term futures is threefold what it was before the accounts were introduced, and the amount being saved every month is up 60%. Now, even if we don't improve from here, but we will, half of our children are going to arrive at 18 with the equivalent of $16,000. No longer is that a dream we have to imagine. In reality, that's what we are on the way towards. When 2020 comes and the first accounts mature, our country's going to change. And it's going to change for the better. And let me say this. If you're concluding from my remarks that this policy is only about kids, it's not. Parents of 25-year-olds stop me after I speak at conferences, and they tell me that they have raided their savings to help their young adult children. They've stopped paying into their pensions. They've taken on more debt, usually through remortgaging their house. Why? Because they know these young adults have real financial challenges. Now, these parents are heroes for doing that, but they don't want praise. What they ask me to do is to tell everyone how important it is to embrace this and get your kids to 18 with the financial asset already in the bag. Finally, can I say this? At the beginning of my remarks, I said we shared a joint value around doing the right thing. Today, I'm reminded of my grandfather, and I'm reminded of him for two reasons. Firstly, I'm wearing his cufflinks. He would barely be able to believe that giving me $150 that he had saved up for me to help me buy my first business suit, that helped me get my first job, would lead to me standing before you today in the Capitol building. He'd have been amazed and very proud. But moreover, my granddad always used to say, do the right thing. And I used to say, Granddad, how will I know? And he said, you'll know. Our children give us their trust without reservation. It's time for us to do the right thing. It's time for us to repay that trust, invest in corporate America, and give all children a stake in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. you, David. We're going to try to end right before 11 so we make sure we have some time for questions for Senator and David. Phil Vino.
Thank you, Lisa. David, I'm always inspired to hear you, and we've got to believe that if our cousins in the UK can do this so well, we've got to be able to one-up you. Senator Lincoln, it's so good to see you again, this time outside of the heat of the Mississippi Delta. I can't say how excited I am to be here today with you and my colleagues as we seek to work with you and other members of Congress and the Obama administration to build a brighter future for our children. Since 2003, I've been working with Lisa Menson, the folks at the Initiative on Financial Security, and other executives from our nation's and the world's largest financial institutions to develop solutions for our country's saving crisis. I agreed to participate not only because of the utmost respect that I have for Lisa, but because for the past 25 years I've seen firsthand what a difference it makes when a family has assets and when they don't have assets. The lack of absence or the presence of absence of assets plays a critical role in the economic success of families and communities. Assets are ladders that bring opportunity and financial security within closer reach of our families. The Enterprise Corporation of Delta and Hope Community Development, Hope Community Credit Union, is a community development financial institution. We're in Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Tennessee, and we work very closely with families on the ground. We've seen the value of asset building. We believe in child accounts, particularly in these difficult economic times. The lack of a safety net, the lack of financial sophistication, the lack of responsible financial practices all help contribute to the economic mess that we're in today. Back home in the Mississippi Delta and other severely distressed communities across our country, these problems are dramatically exacerbated. After Hurricane Katrina, we saw how the lack of assets has prevented thousands from rebuilding their homes and their businesses. Imagine what a difference having a nest egg can make for someone trying to recover from a national disaster or plant closing. That's why after Hurricane Katrina, I pleaded with Lisa and her colleagues at IFS to come to Mississippi and introduce our businesses, our public officials, and our civic leaders to child accounts. David came. And over the past 2 years, we worked with some of the nation's largest financial institutions who every day touch millions of Americans to design a private sector delivery model for child accounts. We crunched the numbers. We built a model. We were lined up and at the starting line ready to go. Ready to implement a program that would provide every child in our state, in the nation's poorest state, with an investment account that would give them a lifeline to a better future. The banks and credit unions were ready. The schools were ready with a curriculum to teach the children how to read their statements and understand the power of compounding interest. Mississippi was ready to lead the way. But when the financial crisis hit, the state couldn't fund the program. The irony is that this is exactly the time when the child accounts program is needed in this country. For the first time in decades, Americans are paying attention to the need for saving. America understands the importance of savings and responsible financial practices. This is a financial literacy program of the first order. We know that many people are disconnected from the financial mainstream. That's part of the reason we're in the mess we're in. This program can help ensure that no child, no family will be in that position going forward. As they grow up, each of the 4 million children born each year in our country, along with their families, will learn how finances work. It will help them be more responsible in their financial decisions and build assets that will jumpstart them on a path of becoming productive, tax-paying citizens. In my financial institution, we know firsthand that investing in people in the communities we serve is good business. This is an investment program that is managed by private sector professionals. It's not a grant or a big government program. The government sees it, then the private sector takes it and multiplies it many times over. It's not consumption. Imagine the long-term implications for a young adult in Mississippi, in Arkansas, on the Gulf Coast, in the Iron Belt, of the difference between being able or not being able to pay for a community college, to a down payment on your first home, to start a small business. Starting young adulthood with a nest egg can be the difference between being a productive, financially self-sufficient citizen and being trapped in a downward spiral of financial dependency. Child accounts promote asset building, strong values, including access to education, stronger family ties, and a focus on the future rather than instant gratification that you spoke to. This is exactly the kind of long-range planning that we should be doing. It's good for our children, it's good for business, it's good for our country. Child accounts are a game changer, an investment that will pay for itself many, many times over and put us back at the front of the pack. No, not to dishonor our friends in the UK, but we should be the leader in the world in terms of investing in the future of our country and our children. And Senator, thank you for leading the way in this. Thank you.
Angela, you're going to close us out today, and we have somebody who's actually been working on this, not waiting, working. So.
Well, thank you, Lisa, for having me here today, and I just want to say how proud and excited I am by the leadership of Senator Lincoln. We're pretty darn lucky to have her in Arkansas. So I'm going to give just a few quick examples of how children's savings accounts are, in fact, working in the United States right now. The first one is we were part of the SEED initiative, and there are several groups in the room, including Aspen and New America and CFED, that were all part of this national initiative that had 10 sites around the country. We were one of those sites in Phillips County, Senator Lincoln's home county. And in that county, just to give you a sense of how poor the county is, median income is $25,000. The median income in the United States is $50,000. So big difference. We chose to focus on preschool age children, so we recruited 75 3- and 4-year-old children in Phillips County, Arkansas to be part of SEED, opened their accounts with $1,000, and then matched their savings $1 for every dollar they saved. I want to give you an example of one SEED saver. His name is William Thomas Jr. He lives in Melwood, just down the road from Helena, West Helena, and his parents run a small soybean farm there. He and his mom opened a SEED account in 2004, and he's been very excited about saving for his future education. He would save his own money in his little piggy bank and then bring it down to the bank and make the deposit. And the woman on our staff who was helping him, he called her Miss Mindy, the college lady. But about 1,200 children around the country have participated in the SEED initiative, and in a huge variety of places: Harlem, Michigan, the Cherokee Nation in Oklahoma, Puerto Rico, and Texas. These children have already saved $2 million. So the idea has taken off, and various states are starting to look at ways to support children's savings accounts. And in Arkansas, our legislature passed the Aspiring Scholars Matching Grant Program. And the first year of that program was in 2008, and almost 500 children in the state of Arkansas enrolled in that program. And I wanted to tell you about a success story from that one as well. A woman named Melva Trask, she went from standing on a roof in Louisiana during Hurricane Katrina to being in Arkansas with 14 members of her family, and now she's standing on her own 2 feet in Arkansas. She started working with us and opened an individual development account, which is the adult version of this, and got a master's degree. She's now working as a counselor in Pine Bluff, Arkansas. In 2008, she has 8 grandchildren. I think 9, actually. I missed one. She opened a children's savings account for every one of those grandchildren, and she scraped together over $2,000 in the first year to put money into every one of their accounts so they could earn the maximum match. So I hope these examples and these stories that I've shared with you today show that savings is possible even for low-income people. They know how to make the trade-offs. They know what's important. That savings for our kids is possible. Parents and grandparents like Melva show that they can save for kids even as they struggle. Everyone is ready to do their part. Individual families, nonprofits, banks. It's now time to add the missing element, which is federal action. That's why we are so proud of Senator Lincoln for taking the leadership on this. We're so proud that she's from Arkansas, because she's going to bring that missing element to the table. Thank you.
This is our moment. We have our leaders. We have our inspiration. We have the right idea. And we're ready to work. We really do feel that this administration and this time is a serious moment where savings is on the table. There are committees right now thinking about this, and Senator is not just a bold leader, she is also a subcommittee leader of one of the most important committees in the whole Congress to move this. And when she says she's going to make a seat at the table, I believe her. And I think this is just such a powerful moment to add the children. So we're going to close our remarks today and again thank Senator Lincoln and open it up to your questions. Yes, Carol.
Senator Lincoln, thank you for your leadership. I'm Carol Wayman with the Corporation for Enterprise Development. I'm really thrilled that you've been able to put IDAs and children's savings account in the Senate budget resolution.
Right.
So thanks for your leadership there. Where do you see the opportunity to add these IDAs and children's savings accounts into what seems like a very full legislative agenda?
Well, I think we're going to have a lot of opportunities as we move into the fall to really look for, these kind of opportunities. Hopefully, I'm missing a healthcare meeting right now, but we're working desperately on healthcare, which will have a direct impact on working families and providing greater access to health insurance and healthcare for Americans. Our Energy Committee, right when I walked in here, I left my proxy for a vote on an energy reform bill coming out of the Energy Committee. And having gotten two of those bigger lifts, I think, moving down the road, we're going to start looking in the fall towards some of the things that we need to do. There'll be some tax reform initiatives that will come up then. And I think you'll see some real opportunities for that. Also, we'll be working hard to get our appropriations bills done on time. There'll be opportunities there as well. So I think we'll have a great opportunity in the fall to be able to really focus on some of these issues. What I'd like to do, particularly when we're talking about our kids, is look at an opportunity when we have people's attention on their children, and that's back to school. Back to school in September is a big time. People are thinking, I know I am, I'm thinking about what do my kids need, for this year, and maybe we can impress upon them what do they need for years to come, and that might be a good timing for us as well. So I think we'll have plenty of opportunities, and I'm looking forward to working with the administration to make sure, as Lisa says, that we've got our kids at the table.
Excellent. Other questions? Yes.
Senator Lincoln, can you talk maybe about the feasibility of this in terms of its cost?
Well, because we don't have our legislative language completed just yet, we don't have a score in terms of what the cost is going to be. But to be honest with you, we've seen a lot of costs over the last several months in this country. And we've been spending money left and right. This is money that we would spend. I think that it's just going to have a tremendous payback. Some of the monies we've been spending, everything starting last September when we started the TARP funds, and we started, there's several others. I can't remember what's the acronym for the other one, Anna? TALF. We've been spending a lot of money. To me, this is something that it's hard for anybody to argue about in terms of both the return on the dollars that we're spending or the need, and also the added benefits we get. I don't know about other members, but I've been working for the last 7 or 8 years to try to increase our ability in financial literacy in the schools, through nonprofits, through a host of other things. This is one solid way that that you're going to get at as many children and as many households as you possibly can in teaching financial literacy. So it's not just the money that we're putting into it, it's also the benefits we get, obviously not from the interest, not from what children can use those dollars for, but it's also what they learn. We've got to change our culture. It's easier said than done, and there's got to be an exercise that makes it happen. Whether it's wellness and prevention, we've got to change our culture. Whether it's a new energy economy, we've got to change our culture. And whether it's our kids and savings, we've got to change our culture. And it's kind of like weeding your garden. You sit there and you say, I need to weed that garden, I need to weed. My grandmother used to say, she said, honey, you just weed 1 row a day. Don't go out there and try to weed the whole garden in one day. You'll never make it. She says, but do 1 row at a time. And this is something that I think is enormous in terms of what it provides us, not just funding.
Couple more? Yes.
I have 2 questions. One, I realize you're sort of early and we're still formulating the language and working this out. The first question was, do you have partners in the House that are identified to introduce similar legislation on that side yet? And then my second question is, what are your thoughts about the dollar figures that might be included in legislation and whether they'll be linked to inflation so that it doesn't have to become a big deal, 10, 15 years down the road to go in there and readjust it?
Well, first of all, we're not as focused on the House as we are on our Senate colleagues, and we're talking with about 3 or 4 other Senate offices so that we can put together a package that will have start out with both good, solid support, but good bipartisan support as well. And so we're working through the details of that. What we're looking at providing is $500 in the child accounts in a contribution certificate, like David has mentioned, and allowing the parents to open that savings account in the name of the child and deposit the certificate, as they do, with participating financial institutions. We also are putting language in there that will obviously provide the oversight of how those accounts can be handled, fees that can be charged, interest that needs to be met to make sure that the children are getting the maximum benefit out of those accounts. It'll have a simple design. We want to make it simple specifically so that it can be a learning tool. And one of the basic investment fund structures for is an 18-year investment horizon. Is that right?
Very much similar to
very similar to that, to what the UK has done. And up to $2,000. I'm not sure what y'all's limits are, but it's roughly around the same amount. A $2,000 limit contributed annually by the child or on behalf of the child, and obviously incentivizing low and moderate income by matching funds for their contributions. And they'll obviously, those accounts would be locked up until 18. There's been a lot of conversation, but I do think it's important to make sure that those funds are not solely focused only on higher education. We want to make sure that those funds are available for 18-year-olds. Just as David mentioned, no 2 children are alike. I have twins, and I know it. Even with twins, no 2 children are alike. And their aspirations, their desires, their dreams are all very different. And it's important to make sure that when they reach that age, that they have access to those resources to reach their potential, not somebody else's potential. And I think that's going to be very important part of what we're doing. So they're very similar to what we've done, what they've done in the UK. We do want to include a financial literacy component. We do think that that's going to be important. The UK tops. Y'all top up your accounts at different stages. I think at 7, don't you top it up? We're looking at when that would be most beneficial in terms of both earnings, but also in terms of teaching and how kids would learn from that. That's what we're looking at.
Yes,
but we don't have a house counterpart yet. We'll talk to them. We'll find somebody.
Gotta work on the Senate.
Yeah, we'll twist somebody on.
Good. Yes, your question.
Hi, I'm with Senator By's office and also the Congressional Coalition on Adoption, which you're a member of.
Yes,
so
I
thank you
am.
for that.
Mhm.
And I wanted to ask the panel if there's been any consideration for children in foster care, 500,000 of them, who are arguably the most vulnerable, don't have family that will match those plans, but could really stand to benefit, especially the 26,000 kids that emancipate at 18 every year and have no family to support them and are just forced into independent living on their own.
Yeah. You're going to be, the advocates from this side have been watching that very careful. We are also joined in the seed demonstration by the Jim Casey Youth Foundation, and we've had special attention on foster care. I believe one of the seed partners has focused explicitly on that. So we've actually got lessons and experience to talk about kids in foster care. We all just came from New York where there was a wonderful meeting focusing on those kids at that, and in fact focusing on the experience of the 18 cohort, the cohort that's just aging out, and about how they use their accounts, how we actually encourage them not to use them for education, because we wanted to find other sources for that and use them in the transition. So as advocates, we've really been pushing about how big, because this is, as David has said, this idea is bold. 4 million children born in all different circumstances. and many will be in our foster care system. So we have powerful advocates who understand that and need to write a policy that is universal so that it fits the many life circumstances. So you know we've been thinking about that.
And you should know we are definitely working very, very hard. We love our foster children in Arkansas, and we're working desperately to provide all kinds of things. I've introduced with Senator Casey some initiatives, particularly I think it was Senator Casey, I can't remember, on our foster care, but looking at best management practices and abilities that we can help by empowering foster families to be able to work with one another. And I have to say that I'm extremely proud today because one of my interns here in our Washington office is from the foster intern program.
Excellent.
And,
welcome aboard.
Well, this is a young man by his own excellent determination has done a tremendous amount and is going to continue to do great things.
We need to.
Lisa, I just say,
Yes,
I think it would be, you'll be impressed to see that if you have an infrastructure in place that can provide a vehicle for investing in child accounts, how families, for kids who don't have immediate family, others will step in. Churches, foundations, just people who care. The Mid-South has one of the largest, biggest hearts. The amount of charitable giving in our region, even though it's a very distressed region, outpaces the rest of the country. So I think with the infrastructure in place, you'll see support for those kids who may not have an immediate family.
We need to close. It's certainly time to build this infrastructure. It is time for me to thank Angela, Bill, David, and especially you, Senator Lincoln. Thank you all for coming. Oh, what do you mean? I'm so proud to be a part of it. Well, we've got